Episode 10 of Frieren might be the perfect anime episode, like one that just blows me away the more I think about what I just consumed, because while we do get the confrontation between Aura and Frieren, the thing that makes this so good is how they handled the pacing, the structure, the mix of flashback, but most importantly, the fact that they do the thing I wish more stories would do. And that's when a villain or anyone gives you an opportunity to fight dirty and you don't take it. Because how many times have we seen movies or shows or read books where join me on the dark side and they say, no, I will not. But Frieren says, you know what? Why don't you just say, hey, I'll join you on the dark side, and when they turn their back to you, you cut off their head. And in this case, what we end up having is an elf who has lived 1,000 years, who has worked on suppressing her mana to the point that it's undetectable. These demons can tell if you're limiting your mana output, but apparently, if you master it and never stop suppressing your mana, you can make yourself look rather weak. And like with Flam, we are doing something that the demons do to humans. Demons use words to deceive humans so that they can kill them and do the nasty things they do. But Frieren and Flam did something that they can do, which is suppress your mana, and in doing so, we can catch these bastards off guard. And of every fight I thought we would see this season, I mean, look at last week. The duo, the two fights we saw, so crazy animation. But this one steals the show, because it's not about the action, it's simply, bitch, I'm stronger than you. Cut your head off. And dips. Brilliant. 10 out of 10. Wouldn't change a damn thing. Full live reaction over on my Patreon if you would like to see that. It's over there if you're interested. I am giddy about this episode. This was easily my personal favorite episode of Frieren. I mean, last week was pure hype and adrenaline, but this was not only my favorite episode of Frieren, but one of my personal favorite episodes I've seen this year. Everything about it, top to bottom, was so well done. I was a little surprised at first when we started getting into the flashback, but hey, I like me a good flashback, and if they wanted to show me some more Flam and how they met and everything, I was here for it, and I figured next week would come and we would have the big battle. And instead, no, with less than 5 minutes remaining, they so casually end this fight because this is how you use flashback in such a good way. Sometimes when you're like in the middle of what should be a big action moment and they cut to a flashback for 5 or 10 minutes and then they go back into the action, then they cut back into, but here's the thing, that can be boring and that can distract from the main attraction, but in this case, the main attraction wasn't a big spectacle. It was simply about showing that Frieren is built that different, and in doing so, by having that flashback, we establish why she's able to deceive so well. I mean, when you're going up against something that is just monstrous, and just, we need to purge from the earth, why should we try to play fair? And I love the fact that when it comes to Ferd finishing off her opponent, he pretty much is like, he's salty, bro. He's like, that ain't fair. You guys are cheating. You guys aren't even playing by the rules. And it's like, who cares, bro? You guys are scumbags, and then obliterates him. This is what I love, because when ultimately we have Frieren who, takes out this big general and she's just kind of sitting on the ground, what ends up happening is we get to see this moment where we see two very different mana outputs. And it looks like, well, Flam is the weaker one. I mean, she has a smaller output, and we have Frieren who's just basically bursting alive. And the idea that on pure instinct and just the way she could look at her, she knew that Flam was stronger than her. And I love the fact that we tie that back to when we have the flashback with the heroes party, where it looks like, Frieren is like 1/5 of the mage and, gets a little salty. But the fact that our main hero was able to say, no, I can tell you're the strongest I've ever met. I love how they tie together these emotional points, but the fact that it's so interesting that in present day, we have Aura who pretty much says like, no, if you were suppressing your mana, I'd be able to tell. Interesting information. Apparently Frieren wasn't under the assumption they had that accuracy. But the thing is if you have a mage who, is very strong, suppressing it in the moment, you're going to be able to tell. You're probably going to be able to read into that. But the idea that she's been doing it her entire life, more or less, or at least a good chunk of it in terms of how long she's lived over the 1,000 years, the idea that she is so natural that it's like breathing to her, it's instinct. She doesn't think about doing it, so in doing so, it makes her look weak at face value. And as we see when she blows away, like the scales tip, the tides had turned, and holy hell, I haven't been this giddy watching a character go away, oh shit, what's going on? And then just the die, and she's like resisting, she's crying, she's begging for her mama. I love how this character has caused such chaos and destruction, and to see her just blow up into such a mess of a character was so satisfying, because we didn't need a big action spectacle. We had that last week. I was expecting it initially, just given how last week went, but the idea that, no, you know what? Had she just tried to overwhelm her with numbers, it would have been a different battle. But the idea of using deception, fight fire with fire. In this case, we're fighting fire with lava. And the idea that she out-deceived her is so fantastic, because I wish more series would do that. I really do. I mean, I'm not saying I need every show to do that, but there's so many cases where it's like, if you just pretended to work with the enemy, or you just got your hands a little dirty, you could deal damage. You might even straight up kill this evil scumbag and never have them harm again. But the idea that, I love how they explain it. For humans who are wealthy, wealth is something that they're going to flaunt. They're going to keep their status up. Sure, they might try to hide their identity just to get through the market in the poverty-stricken area, but at the end of the day, they're not going to remove it for good. And the idea that mana is that to demons, it's basically like they're not going to suppress. You're going to know at face value how strong they are, because to them, that is how they read strength and honor. So the idea of knowing at face value how strong they are, but always deceiving them into making them think you're so weak. Look at what Flam did. It was like that. She did a supernova star colliding explosion and obliterated that entire cliffside in less than a second. And the idea that pretty much, had she been radiating that much power to begin with, I mean, they might have either ran or they would have treated that situation differently. They had no idea the chaos that was in front of them. It just feels like Frieren knows how to not only explore its world and make it feel well thought out and fleshed out. This writer is a genius with how they go about things. But most importantly, it felt like just everything about an episode like this, when you compare it to last week, they're vastly different with how they handled their opponent. Big action spectacle, but showing the idea of not just powering up, but more so the training, their mentors, their masters, how they were able to overcome it, to then an episode like this showing the same thing, but instead of going about it in a fistful way, no, it's all about deception. And I love the fact that these demons, in these moments, you could almost argue like, oh, that's how a human would feel, disgusted that you betrayed them, you deceived them. We made us feel like the demons, but bitch, they deserved it. They absolutely did. They are evil and corrupt, and the idea of not making a name for yourself, not trying to expose yourself to these, hero tales, but more so just get strong and take care of these scumbags so we can eliminate them from good. It's just, I'm blown away by this show. We're 10 episodes deep into Frieren, and it feels like we're just scratching the surface. And the more I think I understand and what to expect with this show, they rip the rug from underneath my feet and show me, no, they're still gonna blow my mind, and I wouldn't have it any damn way other than this. Let me know your thoughts down below, because I really think this is a perfect episode for myself, and I love the fact that we deceive these demons, because it is what they deserve. But thoughts to yourself down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new around here. Of course, ring that bell so you get notified when I upload more videos to the channel. Like I mentioned, we have a full live reaction over on my Patreon if you're interested. And hey, while you're there, you also get a video shout out. So today we have Taylor Thomas, Tony Neal, Bassman280, Chinwei Han, and Waka. So I appreciate the support, everyone. Please take care and have a good one.